Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Thursday. We've got a ton of things on the list today to get into. The Spurs, maybe not interested in Trae Young. Who knows anymore? We'll talk about that. The Cavs eliminated, and then all the news dumps. JB Bickerstaff, his job potentially in jeopardy here. We've got Darius Garland news. We've got Donovan Mitchell news, which I know everybody is waiting for that. We've got DeMar DeRozan news. We've got Lonzo Ball, right? We haven't talked about him in a while. A lot of stuff for us to get into on today's show. All of that means make sure you subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well, because, we keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of the NBA. Joining me is Keith Smith. Keith, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It was a fun night of basketball. Celtics moving on to the East Finals again. So hopefully that's not where it ends this time. We're at least one half of this show is hopeful that's not where it ends. And then the Mavs got it done against the Thunder. That was a pretty impressive win, I thought, by Dallas. They did a good job. Anytime the Thunder seemed to be getting a little momentum, they kind of punched back and held them at bay. That game never really got super close in the second half. There were moments where it got semi-close, but never like all the way there where it felt like, all right, Thunder are going to take the lead. So now OKC got their work cut out for them. They're going to go and win a game 6 on the road. I know you said if Dallas wins, Dallas is going to finish it in 6. So I think I think you might be right. That might have been my pick too. If I remember, I have to go back and look. I'd have to pull up the document, but it was close to something like that. So it's we're moving along. By the end of the weekend, we'll have all of the East and West finals all wrapped up, and we'll know what's going on for next week.
So I said going into the game that the Mavs were going to win game 6. Regardless of what happened in game 5, the Mavs were going to win game 6. So us getting a game 7, in my opinion, was going to come down to whether or not the Thunder won game 5. I do think the Mavs close it out. I think they're going to have that killer instinct. They're going to take advantage, and it'll be a close game in game 6, but I've got the Mavs squeaking by and getting a win. I would love to see a game 7, so I hope I'm wrong, but that's my prediction, is that the Mavs are going to win game 6. But it's been a really fun series. And I thought you're right, Dallas. They did a great job withstanding any runs from OKC by countering, by punching back. Luka, my goodness, the lobs just all day long, pinpoint accurate. Incredible
from
stuff.
70 feet away.
I know he was throwing that. And did you see the one he threw that you're talking about from 70 feet away? He does a little hop before the ball even gets there, because he knows what's about to happen, right? Like he knew that this was gonna get dunked. He knew it was on target. It was like the version of Steph Curry shooting the 3 and then turning around and running away because he already knows the ball's going in. It was like that, only the passing version of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was like when a quarterback lets it go and knows like he's already running down the field celebrating because he knows it's a touchdown. Yeah, I thought Luka looked better physically too. Last night I felt like he was moving better, really getting up and down the floor fairly well like that. I think Kyrie Irving's defense has been really good in this series. I think there's been times OKC has tried to put him in a really tough spot, and I thought he's held up pretty good defensively. He's taken his turns on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which has been huge for the Mavs that he's been able to do that. So, yeah, all around good performance by the Mavs. And you're seeing moments where the Thunder's youth and just not having been there is showing up a little bit. There's been times where both Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren have seemed a little unsure of what they want to do, where they want to go. And that's a part of it, right? That's not really a major criticism by any means. It's just part of growing up and getting there. So, wouldn't surprise me though. They won in Dallas the other day. Wouldn't surprise me if they did it again and forced the game 7. And at that point, then all the pressure flips to the Mavs, right? Because it becomes really hard to win a game 7 on the road. So I expect Dallas to come out and do what they can to try to put this series away. But I think the Thunder have at least a little bit of fight left in them for sure.
Now, the big story that was coming out of last night was what's going to happen with the Cavs, which seemed to be a team in transition, a team in turmoil, perhaps. A lot going on there to break down, but just big picture, we're starting to see this pretty frequently. As soon as a team gets eliminated, boom, Shams has an article spilling all the dirt on the team. And what do you think about that in general? It's like clearly it's pre-written, it's ready to go, and as soon as that team's out, the floodgates open, and here is all the dirty laundry. What do you think about that from our perspective, the way we cover the NBA?
Yeah, I don't love it in general because it feels like a little bit of kicking a team when they're down. A
Sure.
little like they just lost. Now here's all the stories I've been sitting on for the last week, month. In this case, it sounds like months of the
Yeah.
season went by with some of this stuff unreported. So that part, but I also understand why it's done. It's done because if you don't push it and get it out there, someone else is going to.
Absolutely.
That's just kind of how it works. So I fully get it. It does make me sometimes worry about, and I'm not criticizing anybody involved in the reporting on this because I think they're all, good people in there. Sometimes though, it's like, oh man, I already had this story written. Am I going to get to use it? Right. That
Yeah.
part always makes it. Do you start subconsciously rooting for something to go away of I want to get my story out there. So that part makes me a little uneasy with all of it, but it's just how the game is played now, right? It is absolutely what happens, and these stories come out, very very quickly. We saw it after the Lakers got eliminated,
Yep.
after the Suns got eliminated. Those were kind of the big ones. A handful of teams they get knocked out, and it's like they had a good season, like Orlando. Nothing came out after that because everybody's like, hey, they were really happy with this year, so we're not going to see any kind of incendiary story. But here we are with this one, and now I mean there was a lot of stuff in there.
A lot.
Between the coach and the core four players, they were all in there. Like everybody's mentioned. So let's pick one of them, and we'll start.
Yeah.
Peeling the onions away, the layers.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's go here. I mean, to me, this is what really jumped out, and that's that Darius Garland. Essentially, the Cavs want to keep Donovan Mitchell, and there is some optimism that they're going to be able to do that. They're going to give him that max extension. He's going to sign that max extension. But that if he does that, Darius Garland is going to ask out of Cleveland. So it seems like the Cavs backcourt is done one way or another. Either Donovan Mitchell leaves or Darius Garland's going to want out of Cleveland. If you're the Cavs, how do you handle this situation?
Yeah, I think this just seems odd a little bit. I don't think they're the best fit together in the backcourt. They're both small. Right. They're neither one of them plays great defense at this point. They're both guys who are better with the ball than without the ball. So I can understand the idea of breaking them up. It's just a little weird that it's coming out that Darius Garland's like, I don't want to be here anymore if this guy's here. And that to me is a little odd. I think for Cleveland, it becomes all right. Does this become a non-story because Donovan Mitchell makes it a non-story? Because I'm not extending anyway, so who cares? We're gonna get I know far deeper into that conversation here in a minute. But I think in Darius Garland's case, Cavs should be able to get a pretty good return for him. This guy I think he's better than what he showed for large chunks of this year. I think he just had a rough season. Playoffs weren't great, especially against Boston. But I like him. I think he can really play. If I was San Antonio, I'd be picking up the phone the minute he's on the market. Say,
good call.
Hey, can we get you here? Then that kind of eliminated. We're going to get into another story, but that eliminates the whole got to find a long-term point guard. If I was Orlando, I'd be making a phone call and saying, hey, we could use him. His defensive deficiencies, we can mask them because we play really good team defense. I think he'd be a huge upgrade for them and a long-term answer at the point guard spot. So no real issue with his contract. For me, it's got the 4 years left, pretty big money. It was on the max deal, but I think it's perfectly fine for where the cap's going and what he is going to be, about a 25% of the cap guy for the life of that contract. So yeah, no real issue with if a team wants to trade for him, if the Cavs do put him on the market.
He had a worse season this year than he did last year. I mean, in almost every way. Minutes went down, turnovers went up, 3-point percentage went down, free throw attempts went down significantly, assists went down. I'm talking about down by more than just losing a couple of minutes per game. He saw regression in a lot of key areas, and that's I don't think that is an indication of what he is as a player. I don't look at this season and say, oh, see, now he's no good. I can't land there with Darius Garland at this point. I think he's 24 years old. I think it's very possible for him to bounce back, but I don't think he's a great fit next to Donovan Mitchell, nor is Donovan Mitchell a great fit next to Darius Garland. So I can understand why, if Garland is thinking, I want to maximize my potential as an NBA basketball player, why he would look at the Cavs situation and say, I'm not going to do it here. It's not going to happen in Cleveland if Donovan Mitchell is still in town. Now, I think that the Cavs can get a pretty decent return for him. Not like a Trae Young level return or whatever, but a pretty solid return for him. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the Spurs. The teams that might be interested in Trae Young should also be interested in Darius Garland. And then you're comparing your price shopping, right? You're saying, what would it cost me to get this player versus that player? Because even in terms of salary, we're not all that. There's a gap, but we're not that far off to where, you're interested in one, but you wouldn't be able to get to the other guy. So I do think that this is a really surprising development, though, given that he's got a long-term deal. The Cavs could just say, sorry, we're not going to do it. But it's not like the Garland and Mitchell backcourt was gangbusters or anything like that. They're going to have to figure out, do we keep an unhappy Darius Garland? I think the answer is going to be no. We're going to move on and we're going to try to make this trade.
Yeah, and what this could do for Cleveland is this could free up some potential long-term flexibility, let's say, because in this world, Mitchell is still in the fold. They have to extend Mobley this summer. That'll kick in not next season, 24-25, but season after, 25-26. So now we're into, all right, and then Jared Allen will be due for a new contract in a year or so here. So that becomes a position of, all right, if we're going to do this, we need to get the books in order, because we can have Mitchell on a max, Garland on a max. I think Mobley's probably going to be on a max or really, really close. And then Allen, next deal is probably a $30 million a year deal. That runs into, we hit up our whole salary cap between those four guys. And then we're filling out with, all right, are we going to keep Karis LeVert? Are we going to keep, some of the other role players? What's that going to look like? The next thing you know, you're deep into the tax. So I think if you're Cleveland, this is a chance to maybe reset a little bit. Part of the reason why the Spurs jump out is Spurs have 20 plus million in cap space. So you're not having to take back a lot of money. And maybe the Spurs sent back a guy or two, the younger guys that are bigger guards that fit next to Mitchell. Maybe they play Mitchell in more of a on-ball point guard type role. That's been something that's been talked about going back to his Utah days. Like, when's the team going to put him as the primary on-ball guy? So this is definitely now an additional layer. We already knew, all right, the Mitchell watch is now on. Now it's the Mitchell watch, because what is the fallout and come around to Darius Garland, right? That becomes the second layer to this that, quite frankly, I was not really prepared for. That was all pretty new stuff to me.
Yeah, I was surprised too when that came out, and that's why I jumped to this one first. You did mention Donovan Mitchell. It seems like that little bit in there about there's some optimism. I'm paraphrasing, but there's some optimism that they are going to be able to come to an agreement on extension. Keith, I had someone message, I don't remember what platform it was on at this point, but somebody messaged saying, why is no one talking about the fact that the Cavs can give Donovan Mitchell something like $70 million more than another team could if he were to walk in free agency? And that's true, but with the caveat that it's also a lot of that money is coming from a fifth year that another team. A lot of guys look at that fifth year and they go, oh, well, if I'm on a 4-year deal with this team, they're just going to extend me at some point. And like, I'm going to be making money in that fifth year. Just, I don't know how much it's going to be with team X, the non-incumbent team, because that can't be in the contract yet. So it makes it sound like there's this huge gap between what the Cavs can offer in total and what another team can offer. I don't know that NBA players necessarily look at it that way. There are the raise increases and all that sort of stuff. There is a gap, but it's not as big as when you actually compare the total value of the contract would suggest, because guys do look at that open year at the end of the 4-year contract with a non-incumbent team if they were to leave, and they know that that's not really a zero right there. There's going to be money coming in that year.
Man, as soon as we finish, I'm going to the Jedi Salary Cap Council and recommending you bump up from your Padawan status. Like you're there, man. You've fully graduated to Jedi status because that's it. We're there. It's exactly when I write next contract series for Spot Track, which I do. We sprinkle those in as interesting ones come up, and we try to do ones that are very timely, right? People are talking about a guy a lot and those kind of things. When I write these, one of the things I always do is I'll lay out this is the max they can get from their current team. This is the max they could get from another team. And then one of the things I always point out though is let's look at the 4-year over 4-year comparison because that's what really matters. Yes, that 5th year is good, but what would happen in Donovan Mitchell's case, whenever it comes time, if it does come time for him to extend, he's going to do a 5-year deal, and it'll be a 4+1. He will get a player option on that 5th year. So it almost doesn't really matter because it only matters if everything goes sideways for Mitchell in his career. Then it matters, right? Because he's then going to say, well, I'm picking that up. And, even if I can't play or it's really bad money, it is what it is. So it matters, but only to an extent. And when you're really talking about, do I want to stay or go? You're really looking 4-year over 4-year because that's going to be what the difference is. The other thing is players, until they're now, I would say mid to mid 30s at least, players are not in a position where they are going to little breaking news here. Mike Conley's going to play tonight for the Timberwolves. They need him. So that's huge. Yeah, big time for them. The going back though, guys are not assuming, well, I need that last year guaranteed because I'll be garbage by then. Right? Most guys are thinking, I'll opt out of that and I'm getting my next big contract, right?
Exactly.
In that case, it'll be contract number 4 coming my way. And that didn't used to be that way. It used to be if you could get a contract that went into your 30s, all right, then from there, we're kind of playing a little more year to year. Now it is so many of these guys now they hang in there until they're in their mid to late 30s that it's not quite a thing. So I'm so happy that you really got to look 4-year over 4-year because that's really what it's about in these cases.
I'm moving on up in the ranks. I just have to figure out if I can control my emotions enough, not be swayed by the dark side, but we'll see. We'll see. That's still very much a work in progress. I will try not to make what was the actor's name? Hayden Christensen. I will try to not have the same facial expressions as him whenever I can. Oh, those are so bad.
Yeah, we'll turn on a whole side of the internet that we weren't ready for if we go too deep down that rabbit hole. So Mitchell, let's stick to what we actually know about. Sure. So there's a couple of things because I've seen some people saying, why is it that there's all this optimism that they're going to sign him? Mm-hmm. I kind of wonder if Donovan Mitchell is going to pull the old, let me just get the money. And then if 2 years in, not happy, I can ask for a trade then. We know that's how the game is played in the NBA. Yeah. I also think I got to wonder if there is, I've had now, and I'm putting myself in Donovan Mitchell's shoes here. I've had some knee issues over the last couple of years. I just got to be careful here. I don't want to go too crazy. And some team would still come with a max offer for him if he got all the way to free agency. And it's important for everybody to know he has another year under contract. So he's got one more year that he'll be with Cleveland or somewhere else on his current contract. There it is. And then that player option, what the going assumption is, whether he's with Cleveland or it gets traded to another team, is he'll decline that and they'll start a new contract in that year, starting at the max salary that he's able to get. One other thing, I think I've said this before, but it's just worth repeating because I get asked it still regularly. The Cavs cannot give him the supermax. You can only get the supermax extension from the team that drafted you or a team that acquired you while you were still on your rookie scale contract. That is the only way you qualify for that 35% supermax. So he's stuck at the 30% max. That's why it's a little less than like Jaylen Brown got last year.
Sure.
If you start hearing it compared to what Jason Tatum will likely sign for, he can't get that same kind of contract because he was traded. And that's why the whole demanding a trade while you're on that second contract can get a little wonky on you if you're really looking to fully maximize your contracts moving forward. But that's kind of my guess is there's just enough uncertainty there where it is, hey, let me get this money now, and then if it's not going well, we'll figure it out in a couple years.
Now, if the Cavs do trade him, still extension eligible as soon as he's traded?
He is, but what will happen is there'll be about a 6-month waiting period because you
Right.
have to wait to get a bigger extension than is allowed through the extend trade rules. Even though when they fixed, for lack of a better term, the extension rules in the new CBA, extend trades are still fairly limiting. So what
Yeah.
we would see is much like if we remembered when James Harden got traded, there was all this talk of, well, he'll just do his extension with the Clippers. Well, by the time it happened, it was like, yeah, he's not going to because there's no real reason for him to do that. So what we'll see with Mitchell is you'll see him get traded if this is how it goes down, and it'll probably be 6 months later. You'll start hearing, all right, Team X is looking to extend him now. Think Drew Holiday, right? Drew Holiday got traded to the
Right.
Celtics. Had to wait until April to do his extension because you have to wait that 6 months for the extended trade rules.
Okay. All right. So that's something we'd be looking at.
Extended trade.
Sure. Should they decide to trade him, or should we go down that path? And we don't know where that's going to go. As I'm getting a cat tail in the face here, Studio Stu is super thrilled or excited about what's going on with the Cavs right now. So he's checking in to see what's going on.
He thought we were talking cats. So he's
that's just it. He thought it was the Cleveland Cats, and so he showed up and he said, "What? I'm here. Let's go." All right. I wish we had a Karl Anthony Towns story to go to right now. Let's go here though. The Cavs also upset with Jared Allen because we need more turmoil. Jared Allen did not play through much of the series, and the Cavs apparently were not thrilled with that decision.
Yeah, didn't play at all against the Celtics and missed the end of the Magic series. And one of the things that's come out is some teammates are upset because the reporting is he turned down doing a pain-killing injection to be able to play. He said no, which here's the thing, stay out of other people's injury business. This is not like he had a hangnail or like a sprained pinky or something. Like these are like a rib injury that sounds like it was actually pretty bad. They called it a pierced rib. I don't know what that means. I'm guessing I'm guessing he actually had like a fractured rib or something. Normally what you hear when you hear ribs and pierced is like the rib fractured and then the broken portion of the rib pierced a lung,
the lungs, right?
An internal organ or something.
Who was that was getting the shot and the doctor slipped and it went into their lung?
Oh gosh, yeah.
You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
I'm sure I can.
I don't remember, but yeah, and it ended up, the guy had the punctured lung. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was a couple years ago now, I think.
Yeah.
So what the reporting here is Cavs players are a little unhappy that
CJ McCollum.
You're right. Yeah. Cavs are unhappy that he wouldn't take a pain-killing injection and decided to just sit out until he was ready. I don't know, man. Don't get mad at your teammate on that one. This is not a minor thing to try to play through. Like this is a real injury, and I don't know that I blame Jared Allen for that.
So they were going to varsity blues him, and he said, "No, I'm not doing this. I'm not exposing myself to that risk." And people will say, "Oh, he's quitting on his team and all that sort of stuff," but he knows what he's dealing with. He knows how it feels. I'm sure there was risk involved with doing that. So again, like you said, when it's health related, it's hard to really, unless it's something like stub toe and the guy says, "Oh, no, I can't go." This is not that. So
no.
Now,
do we think Darius Garland, like with this whole, if you extend Donovan Mitchell, you think he turns and says, "I don't want your life," and that's how like his Cavs tenure ends?
That's it exactly. That's exactly what's going to happen.
All right, we got one more Cavs story.
Got one more Cavs story.
Oh, we got two more. I'm sorry, because there's JB Bickerstaff. Then we got David Mobley piece that was in there, tucked in this too. This is quite the parade of stuff on this one. So let's talk JB Bickerstaff.
So
we've heard this now for months that the Cavs might be ready to make a change. Personally, I don't fully get it. I know there are Cavs people who are frustrated, but I don't know a fan base that isn't frustrated with their coach at some point. Where there's not some amount of some portion of the fan base that isn't like, fire this guy, get him out of here. Like, it feels like that's everywhere. But I thought JB Bickerstaff did a nice job. He took them from young team, grew them into playoff contender, playoff team, went around this year. And he did all this while they worked through 9 million injuries, and not injuries to the 10th, 11th, and 12th men, but injuries to key guys in the rotation. But we say it all the time, you can't fire all the players. So it seems like this might be a change here. Move on from the coach and bring somebody else in. And this is one, I know you and Sean talked about this on your Lakers show last night. This is one where the Lakers need to be kind of at least keeping an eye open, because these are similar-ish jobs in terms of teams that want to try to win right now. The Washington job is its own separate thing. They're not even being mentioned with any of the same candidates, other than I think Sam Cassell was mentioned as a candidate there at one point in time. But if they do move on, I would expect some of the same names we've heard linked to the Lakers will probably get linked to the Cavs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Should this job, and the word is that they're going to take a few days and kind of sort through things and figure it out. But my point was, they already know. They know. I mean, it's just for appearance's sake. Like, you're not letting it out there that, hey, we might decide to get rid of him. Like, why would you, if any part of your decision making was we could actually keep him, why on earth would you let that information out? Because it could do nothing but harm you, harm your relationship with the coach. I would have to think it's done. The only message that you're sending is, man, we really wanted to get rid of you, but we just didn't see the coach that we wanted out there on the market. So I guess you can stick around for another year. That's not. I would be surprised if within the next couple of days we don't get word that the Cavs are in the market for a head coach.
Yeah, you've got that part. I think this is also now. Let us just talk with Mitchell, Mobley. Those are, I think, kind of transition to the 1 and 1A guys for the organization based on some of this Garland stuff that's out there. Let's see where they're at. If they're like, nah, keep him, man, we want to play for him. All right, go. One of the things that came out in this report is Donovan Mitchell didn't play for Team USA last summer because he felt like he had been overworked in his first year with Cleveland. That he thinks that's part of why he's not playing in the Olympics this year. I don't think they were going to take him anyway. That's just my opinion. I think they've built out a team that they feel good about where they didn't need him. But I think they're just in a spot where he seems pretty unhappy. Kobe Altman apparently had a huge fight with JB Bickerstaff. This is the part of, things haven't been good there for months, because I think that in the article it said that was in November or December. That fight happened because they were fighting about how many minutes Mitchell had played in a regular season game, and he wasn't very happy. So we're now on another job watch here, and I kind of think this might be the last one. I don't know that any of the other teams that are still
Portland
are going to move on from a coach. I think they're all probably sticking with the people they have.
Yeah, the only other one that we've heard is Portland, and that's
sure. Yeah.
Maybe, that's very much, up in there. Who knows if that's actually going to happen?
Something weird's going on with that whole situation.
Portland is a weird city, so
it's true. They pride themselves
and they're proud of it. Absolutely. All right, let's finish off the Cavs here.
Half hour into the show.
Evan Mobley didn't want the Cavs to draft him at number 3. What I thought was interesting was, and then we were talking about going back to the 2021 draft, that his goal was to fall to the Thunder. The Thunder were at 6. Like, if you remember that draft, there was no way that Evan Mobley was going to fall that far. I don't see that. So that being his goal was a little bit surprising to me. But the bottom line is he was hoping that the Cavs would not take him at number 3. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't like it. I mean, Steph Curry didn't want to be drafted by the Warriors, right? We see this happen sometimes. Doesn't mean he doesn't like it in Cleveland now, but just interesting to note that initially he did not want to be a Cleveland Cavalier.
Yeah, it really was. And this is part of why this is coming up is maybe this comes into play with the extension talks. Now, the reporting did know things have been good since he's been in
Yeah.
Cleveland. There's been no issues since then, but every once in a while, these things come out later where it's like, if we're sitting there and it's like July 10th and Evan Mobley hasn't done the rookie scale extension, let's say it's reported like the Cavs have offered him the max rookie scale extension, I'd start getting a little nervous if I was a Cleveland fan. Yes, he will be a restricted free agent in 2025, and you can still control that process. But that would tell me he really doesn't want to be there any longer. And that's where that could get a little weird. But my guess is they'll probably throw him a max or near max extension. He'll sign it and off we'll go.
All right. Let's move on from the Cavs. We'll leave the Cavs alone for a little bit here. Let's go.
I have a feeling we're going to be talking a lot of Cavs this summer.
We are for today. Tomorrow, yes. That's a whole other story.
Yep.
Speaking of which, you've got a story that you've got to get into at some point on this show too. We'll have some scheduled nonsense here. But the Spurs, I don't know at this point, Keith. We keep getting reports that, Wemby wants to play with Trae. The Spurs could be a landing spot from Trae. We've also had, I believe, a couple now at this point of, the Spurs wouldn't really be interested in Trae. Who knows whether or not the Spurs want Trae? I'll tell you this. They need a point guard. If it's Darius Garland, if it's DeJounte Murray, if it's Trae Young, if it's Nikola Topic, whoever it is, if it's Chris Paul, they need a point guard. Whether or not they're interested in Trae Young, I guess that remains to be seen. And I suppose good on the Spurs for doing everything they can to make the situation as clear as mud so that nobody really knows exactly what they want to do.
Yeah, we always talk, whenever we get into this stuff, who benefits from a leak.
Right.
This seems like one where maybe it leaked that they were interested and they weren't real happy. So now it's flipped back the other way of actually we're good. We don't necessarily really want to go this direction. So I think that is a couple things there where we just want to be a little more kind of careful on this stuff with, all right, let's not run too wild because maybe they aren't really interested. And people get mad because they call me a wet blanket. But the likelihood is always that there's not a trade and these things don't happen. That's always far more likely than it does. But sure. I'm going to say I don't fully buy this that they're not interested. Maybe they're not interested at what the price is today. And maybe that price will come down or change or something like that. But yeah, I think there's definitely a world where Trae Young could be on the Spurs. And I think there's all kinds of worlds where that makes a ton of sense for him to be with the Spurs. Like we just talked about Luka throwing 70-foot alley-oops. He might just he might practice his football inbound and just throw those to Wemby right after a made basket. Just be like, get down the floor, big fella. I got you. Like it's, Trae Young is one of the more gifted lob passers we have in the entire league. And yeah, I'm going to say it. There's not a better lob weapon in the NBA than Victor Wembanyama. And it probably won't be for several years.
Since he just does the go gadget and there you go. You've got a dunk. I agree with you. I think ultimately, as much as the Spurs might try and push back again, and they should, the Spurs should push back against this and say, oh, no, we're not that interested, because they don't want that to be out there. But I think they do make sense as a landing spot. They're going to get a point guard. They're going to get somebody. Yes. I don't know if it'll be Trae, but they need to get somebody, and they make sense as a landing spot for Trae as well.
Let's stay on the Spurs just for one more quick thought. I hope people don't get too upset if they go for like the stopgap, get by type option. Let's say they go with a Chris Paul or a Tyus Jones this summer, where it is, hey, we're going to get the guy in for a couple years. I think that's okay. I get it. Like everybody wants, go get Trae Young, go get Darius Garland, like fill out the roster now. Like let's really lock in here. But I kind of get why they could go in the slightly different direction of let's just get a caretaker in for a little bit and then we'll figure it out from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't, unless you're getting the guy that you think, hey, this is it. This is the guy that if you're not sure, the Spurs don't need to rush anything right now. I know Wemby is ready to win right now, and they certainly can, but you can set yourself back greatly if you go all in after somebody that you are not convinced is the guy in an effort to make something happen, to force something to happen. It can be a big problem. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go here. DeMar DeRozan reportedly would like to return to the Chicago Bulls, which makes sense with the news that they would like him to return and would like to pay him probably more than they should.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just feel for Bulls fans. Like, I feel like they're gonna more or less run it back with some moves around the edges again. I do think Zach LaVine will get traded. Like, that one does seem like it's probably gonna go down. But I don't know. There's not anything out there that is jumping out to me where it is, all right, this is the move to make in a LaVine trade that's going to really push them up or make them that much better. And then you run into a spot where I think with a guy like DeRozan, I have no issue. DeMar DeRozan still playing well. Like I think I said, you could do a three-year, $90 million deal for DeMar DeRozan. I wouldn't even really blink at it. I'd be like, okay, sure, why not? I just don't know if the Bulls should do that. I mean, I personally think it's time to let's take this thing down as far as we can and let's figure it out from there. But I get it. They owe a not super heavily protected pick to the Spurs next year, like incidentally from the DeRozan sign and trade a few years ago. So that's a little, interesting of an odd factor in this. But yeah, I don't know. But my guess is this gets done and DeMar DeRozan just back with the Bulls, and we'll have probably the last couple of years of endless trade speculation of, are the Bulls going to move him for stuff? Because I don't see any way that they're better than what's their high end, the 6th seed if everything breaks right. Like, I don't even know that's that good.
First round exit. Probably. Right.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Speaking of players returning to the Bulls, this one I really hope happens. Lonzo Ball. According to Lonzo, he's at about 70%. Now, you and I were joking off air. Lonzo says I'm at 70%, good enough to play. 70% is probably not good enough to actually get out there and play. But this is a guy that we haven't seen in over 2 years. I mean, the injury. There were points, Keith, where you and I were worried about his future mobility, not on the basketball court, just in general, his ability to move around in everyday life. So to hear that he's at 70% right now, we've gotten news a few weeks ago that he's probably going to be coming back this next season. We're going to see him back on the court for the Bulls. That's fantastic. And I'm happy for Lonzo. And I hope that he is able to come back and get back to being the player that he was. It's going to be a long road. I don't know what he'll look like if he can get back to being that guy, but him getting back on the court and getting closer to that point is great. And I hope it really works out for him.
There we go. Got off mute there. If he can get back, that's huge, right? I am really hoping for is let's have I'm going to call it like the Sean Livingston plus version of a career now, where it is he comes back, he becomes a key kind of role player for a team. And why I'm going to say plus is I think he's starting from a higher place, deeper into his career than Livingston was. What's that?
Younger as well, right? Than
a little younger, than when Livingston was. It's probably pretty close, actually, but probably a little bit younger at least. It took Livingston a long time to work his way back, but it take Lonzo too, about 2.5 years. But Sean Livingston went on to have a nice end to his career. He's a big part of those Warriors teams for a couple years that were winning titles, and now I'm hoping that's where we can get to with Lonzo Ball. Let's get him back, and let's finish this out with 4, 5, 6 good years and finish out the career that way. I think that would be huge.
Oh, I guess Sean Livingston missed his age 22 season.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was thinking the injury happened later in his career than that.
No, it was pretty early.
Yeah. It was early. It was earlier than I was misremembering it. But in any event, Lonzo coming back again. There was that stretch, right? And I don't know if the Bulls are just hanging on to this, but there was that stretch when it was years ago now when Lonzo was healthy, DeRozan was there, and the Bulls looked fun and they were playing exciting basketball and they were winning games. And I don't know, I wouldn't say it's likely that they'll ever get back to it, but there was that brief time where everybody went, oh my gosh, the Bulls really have something here. I just hope he can bring even a fraction of that back to this team, that life, that energy, the way he moves the ball, the hit ahead passes, all of that stuff. The 3-point shooting improved, the form improved on his shot. I hope he can get back to that. The Bulls are a lot more fun when Lonzo is doing those kind of things.
Completely agree. He had actually turned himself into a pretty good shooter his
Yeah.
last few years with the Pelicans, and then with the time we did see him with the Bulls, he was playing quite well. So yeah, the passing will never leave, right?
Mhm.
That's just in his genes. Like he will make those plays as much as he can. It'll be, can he beat guys off the dribble? Can he shoot? Can he defend? Right? Can he stay in front of guys? Is he now more of a 2-3 versus a point guard defender? Those kind of things. Because that's always been, I think, the underrated part of his game. He's a pretty good defensive player, or at least was prior
Yes,
to the injury. So
very much so.
we're in a spot where hopefully he's able to get back on the floor, and let's see. Hey, like we said before we started recording, 70% is a heck of a lot better than 0 or 10. So just keep working, and he doesn't need to be 100 for a few months now. He's got to get several months left to go before he needs to be at 100%. So let's just get there.
All right, let's go here. Derrick Jones Jr., obviously the Mavs still playing. They are on the verge of advancing, but would like to stick around with the Dallas Mavericks. While I'm pulling up their salary sheet here, Keith, what would that look like for Derrick Jones Jr. to stay?
Yeah, this part's a little tricky because he's on a minimum contract. So they don't really have any kind of rights where they can offer him very much and be a slight bump over the minimum. But what I think you're going to see Dallas do is, if they want to have him back, get to a place where it is, let's get to probably the taxpayer MLE is the most likely path for them. Just
Mhm.
it's a fairly expensive roster. Yeah, so you're having to scroll down to even find him. He's still not there. Still.
Oh, because he's a free
Oh, because
agent,
we're in
he's
the
not.
next years.
We're in the
That's
next year.
next year.
There,
So you're not going to
there
see
he
him. But
is.
he's coming off a minimum deal. Yeah, very
Yep.
small cap hold, 2.1. That's the minimum cap hold. So you're in a spot for Derrick Jones Jr. where it is, yeah, let's try to get him back. We go to the taxpayer MLE, give him probably all of that with how well he's played for them. That'll be about $5-ish million, a little bit more. And off we go with him back in the fold, and Dallas can kind of run it back. He's become a huge part of that team, playing at both forward positions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that makes sense. If you're Derrick Jones Jr., it makes sense given the success he's had with the team to want to stick around. Just the question will be how exactly do the Mavs pay him? That taxpayer MLE, I agree, does make sense for him. There have been a number of times in this series specifically where the Thunder, they've made the choice, hey, we're going to leave him open, and rightfully so. And he's made them pay. So that's all you can ask for him. And then he gives you that versatility defensively. So it makes sense if he sticks around with Dallas.
Yeah,
All right, let's get.
absolutely. Yeah, he'd be huge for them to keep him.
We've got two things left here. Mike Brown and Tom Thibodeau get are expecting $10+ million extension. So this is, I'm just going to start calling this the Mike Budenholzer contract.
Yep.
That's basically what it is. I think that kind of sets the market. And for these coaches, they're going to say, hey, if he's got that, we want that too. And I think they're probably going to get it.
Yeah, similar-ish positions as far as coaching stature goes for those two guys, and Budenholzer. Budenholzer obviously has the title.
Right.
Brown and Tibbs have that as assistants, but not as head coaches. So, but they're very well-respected guys, guys who have been coach of the year type guys in the past. So, yeah, this is just where we're going with coaching salaries are getting pushed up there more and more. So, I fully expect this is how it's going to go down.
Keith, I know I'm going to use the Mike Brown piece of this to springboard us into just a little bit of scheduled nonsense before our final story. You texted me, I think it was yesterday, with a little fun tidbit from when you did radio in Sacramento, and a certain listener that enjoys our show apparently.
Yeah, so I'm doing a radio spot in Sacramento, and whenever you're doing radio, you end up talking about really whatever it is they want to discuss with you and get into it, and they came back to us and said that the guy came back and said, "Hey, I just want to stop for a minute and tell you, here in Sacramento, we have a very loyal listener on the station I was on, who listens and watches our show most afternoons. And she texted in to say, let Keith know I love NBA Front Office Show." And the listener was Lorraine Harris Fox. That's De'Aaron Fox's mom of the Sacramento Kings. So shout out to her. Thank you so much for being a viewer of the Front Office Show. And I was legit stunned. Hey, people probably find this part craziest thing of all. I didn't really know what to say. And I am very rarely at a loss for words. And I was like, holy cow, that is so cool. So yeah, shout out to De'Aaron Fox's mom, Lorraine. Thank you so much for being a viewer and listener to the NBA Front Office Show. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, always cool to hear stuff like that. So we appreciate you for watching the show. That's awesome.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right, let's finish up the show with this. The Nets plan on retiring Vince Carter's number, which, okay, but Keith, my thing that I said to you before we came on the show, when I think of Vince Carter, like prime Vince Carter, I still think of Toronto Vince Carter. And I think a lot of people are the same, see him the same way. So I'm a little bit surprised that it's the Nets that are retiring his number and we haven't heard on Toronto at this point.
Yeah, we got to let bygones be bygones there in Toronto. It's time to forgive this guy. Like, put the Raptors on the map, right? He was the one who made people like, whoa, wait a minute. This Toronto team, like, this is some pretty cool stuff going on up there. I know it ended very ugly and they weren't real happy, but just take care of the guy. You know, put his number up in the Raptors in Toronto too. Like, they should have beaten the Nets to this, in my opinion. And I get it. A lot of Raptors fans are probably going to say, no, I don't think so. I'd be very curious to see what Luka thinks. Now, I don't even know if Luka was like alive when Vince Carter was playing on the Raptors because he's considerably younger than I am. But it's I'd be curious to see what his thoughts are on this. Our buddy over there on the Raptors channel. So it's but yeah, I think we're in a spot where I don't know. I would have liked to see Toronto do it, but for the Nets to do it, I mean, that's cool, right? I have been a long time kind of person who said the Celtics retired numbers have gotten pretty silly at this point. Now you've kind of crossed the point of no return. Like, you can't not retire some of them because you have retired so many. But when you're a team that doesn't have all that many, take care of your guys, honor your past, right? Like, let's make it happen.
Well, so the Nets, Vince Carter was with the Nets part of his age 28 season. And then he was, and then 4 seasons after that. So 4.5 seasons, a little bit more because he played 57 games with them when he got traded midseason by the Raptors. He was an all-star twice with the Nets. And he was an all-star the half season that he was with them as well. Is that like, should he be retired by the Nets? Like, what? I know every club has their own standard for what numbers get retired and what don't. But is that enough? Like a 4.5-year stint with the club and you made a few all-star teams? Is that enough to get a guy's jersey retired?
Yeah, considering they didn't win. Oh man, sorry, I'm super excited. Leeds just scored. Like, they're in the playoffs.
I was wondering what you were watching.
Turning my head. Yeah, I keep turning my head, and they just scored, and it's a huge deal because it's the second leg of the playoff to get into the final for maybe to get to the Premier League, and they just scored, so they went ahead 1-0. Sorry, I'm fired up.
No, it's big time.
Where that is, had you won a title in that time, fine. Otherwise, that's probably a little shy. Now, I would get it if it was like, hey, this guy was on his way to being our all-time franchise guy and something horrible happened or something like that. That's a whole different thing. But yeah, that's a little, I got to kind of wonder if they're like, all right, and no one else is going to do it. We should, because he should have his number retired somewhere. He played 22
for sure
years or whatever it was.
He's amazing.
Yeah. Half man,
half amazing. Yeah, that's right. That's right. His number absolutely should be retired somewhere. So I get that. I just question if it should be the Nets or not. But, the Nets, look, Vince Carter, he obviously meant a lot to their team. He meant a lot to the game in general. So if you're going to look at it and say, well, he was only with us for this stretch, but really we're retiring the number to recognize everything that he did, even when he wasn't with our team. Okay, I get that. I always go back to this. If Michael Jordan's number can be retired by the Miami Heat and he never played for them, who's
That's
to say
embarrassing.
what numbers can be retired, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Nets retired numbers. Drazen Petrovic, we get it. We know why that happened. Still miss Drazen. Jason Kidd, fine. John Williams, Bill Melchione, Dr. J, and Buck Williams. Or John Williamson, I should say. And then Buck Williams. So, yeah, all right. You want to throw Vince up there? Have at it. Go nuts. Yeah. Now, do they have to go back and hang it in New Jersey though? They didn't play in Brooklyn for them. That's weird.
Go back and hang it in just in an empty building.
Yeah, well, I think the Devils still play there, but
do they? Okay,
I think so. I don't know.
So then if you're a Nets fan, you have to make the pilgrimage to go and see the Vince Carter.
You have to go check it out. Yeah, I don't know. They're just it's just weird. He never played in Brooklyn. I don't know. It's also weird that we talk about how the Thunder, they were talking about it during one of the playoff games this year. They're franchise playoff success, and it's no, you don't get to count what Seattle did. You're a new team. That's not yeah.
That's a different thing. So when you're talking about Vince Carter and his jersey actually being retired in New Jersey, that would be a rough precedent for somebody say George Mikan or something like that, right? That would be rough. But what you're talking about there with the Thunder, I thought they had to leave the Sonics history, officially had to leave their history behind, when an expansion team goes to Seattle, they're just going to be the Sonics and pick up that history, aren't they?
Well, so two things with that. One, I believe how it's going to work for them is the Sonics everything will revert back to the Sonics, much like when the Hornets became the Pelicans. I mean, they became the New Orleans Hornets for a while. Then they switched to the Pelicans. But when the Charlotte Hornets were the Bobcats, they came back into being as a Charlotte franchise, everything reverted back to them. It was they got all the previous history and all that stuff, and then they righted that ridiculous Bobcats wrong and went back to being the Hornets again. So how I believe it's supposed to work is because I'm with you, when Seattle gets a new team, is that's supposed to all, I believe, go back, and then the Thunder have their own history, which in Thunder history now they've retired Bob Blackburn, which was a microphone. He was a longtime broadcaster. And then their only Thunder retired number is Nick Collison, who played for the team forever. So we get why they did that one. So now we're in a spot where it is, I think, with Seattle, get there. Now, here's the other thing. So I saw this the other day. Some Seattle fans are yeah, do we need to be the Sonics again? Let's just be something new and cool. Now, 99% of Sonics fans were go away. You probably didn't live here when they were here. You don't get a say in this. No, we are the Sonics. Bring back the Supersonics, and they'll go right back to to what they were and all that stuff. So I expect that to happen, but we'll see where that goes. But yeah, that's how it should be. They should get everything back, get the banners back, and all that stuff. Because none of those were won in Oklahoma City. None of that's not their history, and that's not a that ended badly. In Seattle, this was not a move where it's all right, they're just going and took their So there's I know there's hard feelings about that whole thing.
But that ill will isn't directed at the team or at the name Sonics. It's directed at the ownership. It's directed at the Thunder, and ownership that took the team to Oklahoma City. So Sonics, the name, I could see saying, we're not going to be the Sonics if there was this, dark cloud over the Seattle city that's very cloudy, over the Sonics. But that's not the case. And when I look at this from a marketing standpoint, from a financial standpoint, nostalgia is a powerful thing. You can only imagine how many of the new Sonics jerseys are going to be sold. I know getting a new team, the Kraken, right? Something like that into Seattle, that's going to be a big deal. That's going to generate buzz. But I think you're going to really have something when you bring the Sonics back. I don't think you can do anything but bring back the Seattle Sonics. I think it has to be that. You can't come in with a new basketball team and a new name and try to throw something else out there and make that work.
Yeah, completely agree. And it just needs to be the Sonics. Like don't mess around. Don't get dumb here. Just be very smart about this. Want a prediction?
Yeah.
Okay. Here, this is going to take a while to fulfill, provided he is still playing. Kevin Durant's going to play his final season with the Seattle Supersonics.
Oh,
that's my prediction. He's going to go back, bring it full circle. And close it out in Seattle. That's
my
prediction.
Yeah, I like it.
I 100% believe that's how that'll play out. Provided he's still playing. Because if he retires in like 2 years and then it's, I don't know, forever away, then all right, I kind of get it. But yeah, it'll be. That's where I'm at.
I like it. All right, everybody. Packed show today. We had a lot of stuff that we had to get into. A lot of Cavs stuff. A lot of other things too. We'll be back tomorrow with more. In fact, we'll have our live show, Front Office Friday, will be tomorrow. If my days of the week are correct at this point, because who knows what day it is anymore.
I checked before we started recording.
Thank you. But tomorrow we'll have Front Office Friday live. So be on the lookout. Watch our social channels, and we'll let you know what time we'll get that started at. And of course, go follow the Substack, basketballbulletin.substack.com, and tons of stuff going up there as well. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.